Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Kathy. If you are new here, thanks so much for stopping by. If we have painted together before, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Today we are doing a technique video on how to paint petal flowers. So we will jump right in. We'll talk about the supplies that we're going to use and how to load the paint on your brush and how to do this petal technique. So let's get started. Let's go over what supplies we will need. I will list the colors and the type of paint and the brushes and everything in the comment section, so you can refer back to that later if you need to. We are using two colors today. We have them here. One is Juneberry. It's a really pretty berry color. And then Wicker White. The brand I am using today is FolkArt Multi-Surface Paint. This is not an endorsed or sponsored video. I just really believe in sharing with you guys the products that I use and love and that I've used for years, so I can attest to how well they work. So multi-surface is definitely one of my favorites. The reason being, for the most part, you get a really nice variety of colors to pick from. But you can also, no matter what it is you're painting on, you can use the multi-surface. So whether you're painting on a canvas or wood or glass or tin, this paint will do it all for you. So truly one of my favorites. So two colors that we're using today. We have two paint brushes that we'll be using. One is just your basic flat brush. This is a number 12 flat. The brand that I use is made by FolkArt. It is a one-stroke paintbrush, but any flat brush, you know, about this size will work just fine. And then we'll also have a number 1 liner brush. I will list also the website below. onestroke.com is where I get my brushes from. But really, like I said, any flat brush or liner brush that you have at home will work great. And honestly, any colors that you have at home. I'm just going to show you these, but whatever you have at home to play with is just fine. So I'm going to scooch these out of the way. Other supplies that we have that you'll need. This is my paint palette, just a styrofoam plate. And I already put a blob of each paint on there, and we'll talk about when you put the paint on and how to get that set up. So we'll go over that here in just a sec, but just a styrofoam plate. Off camera here a little bit, I have a brush basin that just has water in it to rinse my brushes out. So again, whatever you have at home, a styrofoam cup will work great. That'll be just fine. I do have a little bit of a paper towel over here because I am messy when I paint. And then on the table here, hopefully you can see it on the video, is wax paper. So we actually practice on the wax paper first before going to whatever your good surface is. So whether you're painting with me at home or if you come to one of my live paint events where we paint together in person, we will always use the wax paper to practice on. It's just a nice smooth surface, inexpensive, so you can play at home and kind of practice this technique. And that's one thing, you guys, I really try to keep the supplies pretty basic. I want you guys to be able to paint at home and play around with new techniques without really investing a huge amount of money. So we're talking some, you know, craft multi-surface paint, styrofoam plates, wax paper, pretty good. Now, the one thing I will say, though, is if you're going to be playing with this a little bit, I would really think about getting a good set of brushes. That's the one thing that does make a difference as you're learning to do these strokes. And these FolkArt brushes are wonderful. Again, not endorsed. I like sharing with you guys what I like to do. So, all right, let's practice some flowers. So I'm going to grab my plate, and if you guys would go ahead and get 2 blobs of paint, you know, about the size of a quarter. You don't need a huge amount. But what you're going to do is put one color here, put another color here, and then leave some space here in between. Okay, we're going to do something called double loading. So you're going to want this space in between here. Now, for this method of painting, I really do like when you have 2 colors, but that are pretty different. So obviously, like, this berry color is a lot darker and the white is a lot lighter. And you'll see why. Once we get to double blending, you'll get to see the cool thing about how you can see color, highlight, shading all in one stroke. So it works really well when you have a darker and lighter. But, you know, paint with whatever you have at home. If you have 2 similar colors, that's okay too. We're just playing. All right, we are going to grab our flat brush here, and let's talk about getting this paint on the brush. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our brush straight up and down. You are going to dip one corner in your berry color, or whatever color you have, your darker color, and then the other corner in the white. Okay, and then on this plate, we are going to make what's called a blending spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to push that brush down, pull it towards you, and then push away, and towards you, and push away. Can you guys see this spot? So you've got the berry next to the berry and the white next to the white, okay? And if you look at my brush, it is pushing all the way down. You want to work that paint all the way up into the brush and really, really squish that brush down. Now we're going to do this, gosh, probably 3 or 4 times, okay? We're going to dip each corner, blend back and forth, dip each corner, blend back and forth. Okay, so we're just really working the paint up into the brush. Now, one thing I will tell you, things I've noticed when people are new to this painting method is when we're doing this blending, they tend to go all around the plate. We don't really want to do that. Our goal is not to paint this plate. We just want to work our paint up into the brush. So each time you come to dip here and blend, go over that same spot. And if you guys can see, we want a lot of paint on this brush. Okay, that's the other thing when people are first starting out that I've noticed most often is we just don't have enough paint on the brush. So when you go to do the strokes that I'm going to show you, your brush doesn't quite glide. It kind of gets stuck. So you definitely want a lot of paint. Goopy is our word we're going for there. Okay, so this is what we do when we're first loading the brush. Now, as we go through and practice a little bit, you'll feel when you need to put some more paint on the brush, like your strokes just kind of won't be working quite as well. So whenever you need to pick up paint, you'll do the exact same thing we did. You'll come over to your plate, you'll dip each corner, blend, dip each corner, blend. Okay, so each time you're putting paint on this brush, we want to go back to that same blending spot. Okay, so we're going to go to our wax paper and let's practice this petal shape. Okay, so first I'm going to kind of go along here and we'll do the shape of the petal so you can see that, and then we'll work on building the flower. Okay, all right, so with this one, we want our brush straight up and down. This handle is pointing up to the ceiling, okay? The dark color is on the top or the outside. The lighter color is kind of closest to your body, okay? Straight up and down, and what we're going to do is we are going to touch to the, let me make sure you can see it, touch to the wax paper. I'm going to lead my brush over to the side, so I'm going to the right a little bit, squishing down. I'm sliding up, rotating that top around, and coming back down. Okay, I'm going to do this a few more times so you can see. You're basically starting up on the edge, laying it on the side so that brush fans out and coming back around. But if you take a look, this white really didn't move. Okay, so really you're kind of laying that brush down and rotating that darker color on the outside, but this white is going to stay here, if that makes sense. Okay, let's do a couple more. Now, I will tell you, if you are left-handed, you're going to kind of do opposite of what I say. So I'm right-handed, so I rotate to the right. If you are left-handed, you will start here and rotate toward the left. Now, I have had many, many left-handers tell me it's just as easy to go to the right. So just keep in mind, you can find what's comfortable for you. If there's one direction that works better, either way is going to be fine. But I've just noticed left-handed seems to work best if you curve to the left. Okay, let's do a couple more here. All right, remember I'm starting straight up and down. I'm right up on the edge of this brush. I'm going to lay down to the side, slide up, rotate that top, that dark color, and come back down. And you notice I start standing up and then I end standing up. When your brush is laying down, it's just when you're doing this petal shape. Okay, and you can see, here's the cool thing, color highlight shading. We have the dark, we have the light, kind of a combination in between. And you'll notice I'm coming back here to pick up paint when I feel like there's not enough on there. Okay, let's do a couple more. So up on the edge, kind of lay it down to the side to the right, slide up, and then pull it back down. Slide up, squish that brush down, and lift up. Okay, if you're doing this at home and your petal isn't quite as full, like if you have a hollow center, what's happening is you are up on the edge of the brush, which is good. I was going to see if I can move it closer, but up on the edge of the brush, but you're kind of pushing up and coming back down. Okay, and see how that's hollow? We need to lay our brush on the side because that really fans that brush out and that's what fills it in for you. Okay, so rather than just up and over with a hollow, start in the same spot, squish that brush down and come back down. And you see the difference between this one being hollow and then this one being more filled in. Okay, all right, so now that we've looked at that basic petal, let's look at how we put it together as a flower. Now, one thing I would tell you, that it's easiest when you're first starting this method to kind of get your groove on as far as doing this petal shape in one direction. Okay, so pushing away from you, coming back down. As we're building this flower, you're going to see, I'm going to kind of rotate my hand just so you guys can see what I'm doing. But if you're at home, it's going to be easiest if you do a petal, turn your wax paper, do a petal, turn your wax paper. Okay, just keep in mind, I'm doing this so you guys can see what it looks like. But when you're first learning this, it makes sense to do a petal, rotate, do a petal. Okay. All right, so let's start. Let's build this flower. You guys, these are just some of my favorite flowers to paint. You can kind of see I've got a couple things in the background, which I'll show you when we get to the end. But you could do these in any color combination. You can do, bright colors for the spring. You could do more oranges and yellows and golds for the fall. They're just a great flower, and they're really fun to make once you get the hang of the stroke. So, okay, let's go here and let's build our flower. So I am going to start again straight up and down. The color is on the top, and the white is closer to me, to my body. Okay, we're going to start, and I'm going to lay it down, slide up, rotate that color around, and come back. All right, now to start your next petal, remember this is where you could kind of rotate your wax paper. You're going to start lining up by where this petal ended, okay? And you can see my white is by the white. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to push up, rotate around, and do another petal. And I'm going to come here and do the same thing. So my white is still going to be where my white is. I'm going to come around and swoosh a petal that way. Now remember, this is where I recommend just kind of turn your wax paper as you're doing each petal. Okay, I'm going to come here. I'm going to put a petal here. And then I'm going to put another petal here. And you saw that white is always in the center of wherever this flower is going to be. Now, as you're doing this, if your center looks a little goopy, that's okay. We're going to come back here in a little bit and fill that in anyway, so don't worry about how the middle looks. Okay. The other thing I would tell you is I call these petal flowers. Now, usually I hit about 5 petals, okay? But one thing I want to stress to you, when you're at home practicing, it doesn't matter how many petals you have, you guys. You can end up with 4 petals or 7. Doesn't matter. No one's going to count your petals. So for right now, we're just working on, getting used to the shape and making the flower and just practicing that. So please do not worry about how many petals you get. It just depends as you're going around how many you can fit on there, okay? All right, I'm going to do another one here. So we're going to start again, straight up and down. Colors, the darker's on the outside, white is closest to you. Okay, I'm going to lay it down, lay to the side, slide up, rotate that color around, and come back to the center. Okay, remember, you go standing up to standing up. Okay, lining up my whites here. I'm going to do another petal here. I'm going to do another one here. And you can see when I go over here, I reach over next to me and pick up some more paint each time, swishing. I will tell you, as you go back to pick up paint, one thing that will happen, the more you do this, you will dip in the wrong color. It happens to all of us. I've been doing this a long time, and I still dip in the wrong color sometimes. So if that happens, like if your wine or berry color accidentally goes in the white, not a big deal. You just grab your paper towel, wipe it off, and then reload again. So truly, you guys, it will happen. It's not a big deal. All right, let's get a couple more petals on here. So again, if you were at home, you would just rotate to do your next petals. I'm just going to kind of do it here so you can kind of see how the flower looks. Okay. So we've got a couple there. I'm going to do another petal here, or another flower here, but I want to show you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it a little bit differently on where I position the paint. So here I am picking up some more paint. Okay, swooshing back and forth. Now what I'm going to do on this one, I'm going to flip my brush just so you can see the difference. So remember with this one, the dark was on top, okay? I'm going to flip my brush just so the white is on the outside of the flower, just so you can see just a little bit of the difference here. Okay, starting the same way, straight up and down. I'm going to push and bring that petal around. And now can you see? There's white on the outside and that berry color on the inside. So it's kind of neat if you're doing a project where you have some with the berry on the outside and some with the white on the outside. Okay, let me bring this around so we can kind of get a feeling here of how this looks. But I really like when you can kind of switch up you know, which direction, what's on the outside and what's on the inside. I think it's just kind of very pretty. One more thing I will show you. So these are full petal flowers. Okay, sometimes if you're doing, like, let's say you're doing a canvas and you have the flowers, or a wood board and you have these flowers going all the way across, when you get to the ends, you could do leaves and some other things, and I'll have some other videos you can watch on how to do leaves, but sometimes you just want maybe like a partial flower, so like a bud almost. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the side here and I'm going to do the same thing we did. But instead of starting straight up and down, I'm going to have him coming out to the side. And I'm not going to do all 5 petals. I'm just going to do maybe 2 or 3 petals. Okay, so I'm going to come here, and I know it's going to run into this guy, but don't worry about that. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to do a petal, and then I'm going to do one in the middle, and then one on the side. And you see how that looks like a smaller version, like the flower hasn't opened yet. I will do one over here too, just so you guys can see. Okay, so I'm going to be here. I'm going to do one petal, a center, and then another one. And so it's just a flower that hasn't opened all the way yet. All right, let's do another one. I'm going to do another one here. So 1, 2, 3, and they're smaller. Okay. And then we'll do another one here. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so before you know it, you've got the full-size petals, you have some smaller ones, and you have a really pretty bouquet that's happening there. Okay, let's take a look at the centers now, because those are a little bit goopy there, so we want to kind of fill them in with something so they're not just empty there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you 2 different centers. Whoops, my brush is rolling. 2 different centers you could do. One is kind of a speckled or dotted center. It's not quite as solid, which I'll show you, but it's a neat effect. And then the other center we'll do is just simply a polka dot. So either way is great. And I'm just going to use the colors we have here, but you could do your centers in yellow or green or black. That would be pretty as well. So any colors. So I'm going to come and I'm going to grab this little liner brush that we had that I showed you in the beginning. Now, to load the paint on this one, we do it a little bit different. We don't swoosh back and forth. With this one, we're actually going to dip in our color. Okay, and I'm going to dip in the berry and then roll it. And if you can see my thumb and my pointer, we're just kind of rolling that brush, and we're going to dip in and roll it. That loads the paint on the brush, but it keeps that point kind of together. So it's a nice edge on this little brush. So, all right. Do that. We're just going to roll in here just a couple more times, get some paint on there. Okay. All right. So let's come back here. Let's do a center in this first one so I can show you how this looks. So with this one, we're going to take this and we're just going to tap. Okay. And I'm just going to come here and just tap in a circle and then sort of tap in the middle. Now it's okay if you're goopy in there. I'm going to pick up a little white just because I had a lot of white kind of gooped in the center there, but that's okay. And you can see it's not really solid. It's more of like a, kind of a, I guess speckly is the word I'm looking for, but just kind of fun. It's not just a real solid center. So again, imagine this with like black little dots in there or yellow, how pretty that would be. Okay, so let's come back and we'll talk about the polka dot center. Now I'm going to use the same brush, but to do my polka dots, I'm going to turn the brush over and we're going to use this handle. So I'm going to dip in this berry color and just kind of swoosh it around a little bit. So to do the polka dots, you just dip in there and then you tap. You dip in and tap. And you see how that gives you a perfect polka dot each time. I love this polka dot method. All right, so we're going to come back and let's do a polka dot on this one. Okay, so you could simply dip in your paint and tap and get just a perfect polka dot. Now for this one, I think I want this polka dot a little bit bigger. So same thing, we're just going to give it a little swirl. So I'm still using the handle. I'm dipping over here in the paint. But instead of just tapping and leaving it small, I'm going to come and I'm going to give that a little swirl. Okay, so still a polka dot, but a little bit bigger since this flower I think needed just a little bit of a bigger center there. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to tap over here in my berry. I'm going to come to this one and just swirl around the center. Okay. So that is it. Now polka dots are a great filler too. I'm going to come back and I'm going to dip in my white And I'm just going to tap a few dots kind of around. Just tap, 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 tap. Let's do it over here. Tap, 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 tap. And I know it's white, so you might not be able to see it quite as bad, but it's almost like the baby's breath of painting is the polka dots. Just kind of fills in a little bit. All right, so that is it for our petal flowers. So I can't stress enough, the more you guys do these things, the better you get. So practice, practice. You know, grab some of that craft paint at home, grab a couple brushes and some wax paper and just paint away. I'm going to lift this up just so you can see just a little bit of a different angle. So you can see how they look. And just the shapes. And there's a little bit of glare when I do that for my lighting, but you can see that. Petal flowers are just very fun. And again, please don't stress over how many petals you have. If you end up with 4 or 7, it really doesn't matter. I promise. It'll be beautiful. So thank you guys so much for joining me today for this technique video. I hope it was fun. You can take a look back at the past videos I've posted. There's winter trees and there's greenery. I've got a couple more coming out in the next few days. We'll go over leaves and vines and some different projects. So if you like this video today, if you would please hit that like button below, that would be awesome. There is also a subscribe button, and that just lets you know when I upload the next video. So if you would consider subscribing, I would greatly appreciate that as well. So thank you guys so very much, and I hope to see you again soon and paint with you soon, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.